Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Making the Right Platform Choice to Best Support Your Cloud Deployment of SAP S/4HANA, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by SUSE. I'm Robert Holland from SAP Insider, and I will be your moderator today. Just a couple of announcements before we begin. We do offer the opportunity for you to submit questions in this webinar, and they will be followed up on following the conclusion of the webinar, since this is a pre-recorded webinar session. A copy of today's presentation will be available to download in an email after the session. And our speaker for today is Sherry Yu. Sherry is the Global Director of Cloud Success Architect for SAP at SUSE. Sherry, welcome to the webinar, and thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, let's get started. Yeah, thank you for joining us. So today we're going to cover several aspects. The first one is the customer challenges that we have observed through the cloud migration journey. And then SUSE sought leadership for SAP solutions, especially that we have this multi-cloud approach. And we also have joint innovations with Hyperscalers. And at the end, I will take a deep dive on the solutions to address the customer challenges. And I will conclude the webinar with some customer success stories. Let's get started. So during the journey of migrating your SAP workload to the cloud, especially with this migration to SAP S/4HANA, and we have observed, several challenges. The first one is, of course, the downtime, how to avoid downtime in the cloud infrastructure from planned or unplanned maintenance. And this is number one concern that the customers are having, because SAP workload is mission critical. Downtime is very expensive. And then when setting up the SAP landscape, normally the customers are challenged by the lack of the skill sets that are experienced with the cloud infrastructure. And the setup is very often very complex and resource demanding. And there are so many requirements to follow. Very often it slows down the deployment process. And also to avoid downtime, the high availability deployment sometimes even fail because it's very complex. Then in the day two operations, there could be drifts in the configuration over the time that also eventually cause outages. And also customers want to gain insights into the SAP landscape, especially on what's happening within the cluster, so they can remediate any issue as early as possible to avoid the outage. At the end, security is a very high level a requirement. It's almost the requirement of every customer is having right now, and we also have some answers for that. And regarding SUSE sought leadership in solutions for SAP, very often customers does a checklist to see whether SUSE provides solutions, following a checklist. We also like to invite customers to take deep dive on how we engage with SAP to create new solutions. So the iceberg you are seeing right now represents the process by using this analogy. So the below the C represents the heavy lifting before a solution became released and can be consumed by the customers. It very often starts with a real customer challenge. Either we learn directly from the customer or through SAP, and then we brainstorm with SAP to come up with a prototype. And SUSE works closely with a customer advisory board, and which consists of world's largest SAP customers. And we often present the prototype with them to gather their ideas and the feedback. And some of the customers would actually test the prototype and provide feedback that are well incorporated into the final design. And then the solution goes through the engineering process to be fully developed and tested before being released. So sometimes for very complex solution, it went through multi-year design and development. That's why when the solution is finally adopted by the customer, SUSE has this developer level expertise to support the customers. And if there is any issue happen, SUSE's premium support engineer are also the experts on those ACP solutions. They can troubleshoot and quickly provide a solution. And in certain cases, if that solution needs developer level, for example, code change or things like that, and we have direct connection with the developer to make enhancement in a timely manner. So this is a mechanism working behind the scene, and that's the reason why SUSE has achieved a very high customer satisfaction. And SUSE always has this multi-cloud approach when it comes to SAP solutions. And currently, we have 3 pillars to support customers' journey to SAP S/4HANA and also the cloud migration. The first one is accelerate the migration by automating the SAP landscape deployment. The automation scripts are based on the best practices, and not only from the SUSE side, but also adopt the best practice provided by each cloud. And so when you execute that automation, the customers would be assured that they are following the best approaches for provisioning and also help you avoid errors in the configuration. Typical scenario. For typical scenarios, the deployment time can be reduced from weeks to days or even hours. And what's worth noting is that the automation also includes the configuration and setup of the cluster, which is deemed to be the most difficult part of the SAP landscape deployment. And the second pillar is to minimize downtime. For mission-critical SAP workload, downtime is very expensive, and sometimes it can cost even the reputation of the organization. That's why SUSE has been focusing on developing HA solutions for many years. And now we provide solutions to reduce planned and also unplanned downtime. We also help streamline lifecycle and security management while avoiding downtime. The third pillar is to maximize insights. And we provide solutions to help you to gain insights into SAP landscape, especially the cluster. Because in the past, for a lot of customers, cluster is like a black box. No one has full insights into what's going on until an outage happens. To avoid that, we provide transparency. And in many cases, the outage is the result of accumulated minor issues. And that's why we help customers to stay alert and be notified on those minor issues through the monitoring solution. And we also provide a role-based proactive validation. So for example, in day-to operations over time, the configuration could drift. And sometimes the outage happens because of the drifts. And we can also provide from time to time validation to scan your environment and make sure that all the settings and the configurations are still sticking to the best practice.
Before you move on, Sherry, I just wanted to say that I think that these areas align really well with some of the research that we've been seeing. I mean, particularly around accelerating deployments, ensuring that systems get deployed more quickly, improving resilience, minimizing downtime, ensuring high availability in disaster recovery work. I mean, depending on the research report that I've done, I mean, I think these solutions align very well with what I'm sort of seeing organizations need from a research standpoint. So I think it's fantastic that SUSE is offering, all the solutions in this space.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for the testimonial. That's exactly, SUSE's approach. We work directly with the customers, right? We gathered feedback on what are the real life challenges that customers are having. Then we create solutions to meet their needs. Thank you. And with hyperscalers, there are also very unique approach for SUSE to work with them. Yeah, because the cloud infrastructure is essentially quite different from on-prem. That's why sometimes the learning cycle to adapt to hyperscaler is quite long. In order to provide customers with the best solution that fit in the hyperscalers environment, we also collaborate closely with each of the top hyperscalers. So for example, this is a typical engagement process to create innovations. SUSE would work with SAP to identify challenges and create solutions. Then we offer support. And the first step normally focus on on-prem because we have a very large install base on-prem. And then we take that solution to work with the hyperscaler, each of the hyperscalers. And the hyperscaler would evaluate the solution to see whether it's a good fit. Then they would test the solution, then publish the documentation, then offer official support. Very often, the hyperscaler would discover some challenges that's very unique to their environment. And then they provide that feedback to SUSE and request SUSE to create a solution based on those type of challenges. And we are well equipped to work with each hyperscaler and meet their needs. And at the end, once the solution is adopted by the customers, SUSE and the hyperscalers offer joint support. So we have an integrated support model with SAP and hyperscalers. It's well governed by SAP. The support responsibility normally split based on consumption model. So for example, if a customer bring the SUSE subscription onto the cloud, then they can receive support from SUSE for L1 and L2. If a customer consume the pay-as-you-go marketplace SUSE images, then L1 and L2 would be provided by the hyperscaler. But behind the scene, SUSE works with hyperscalers on L3 support. And this is a very smooth process. And both companies together with SAP have cadence to review the cases and the lessons learned, things like that, to ensure that our support staff are well trained and have that knowledge to support customers. So let's take a deep dive on each of the challenges and the solutions to tackle them. The first one is the downtime. And as I mentioned, SUSE provides two types of solutions. The first one is to reduce planned downtime. There are various ways. Planned downtime is often introduced by maintenance work. So if you have HANA running in the cluster, very often it requires downtime to be able to do some maintenance work. So for that, SUSE has created this rolling update process, so the customers can avoid downtime to do the maintenance to the HANA system replication in the cluster. And the second type is to do the live patching. And very often the customers need to patch the system, and some patches would require a reboot. For that, we have created live patches to help you to avoid reboot for up to 12 months. And SUSE is the first company who offers not only the kernel live patching, but also user space live patching. So I have another slide to talk about details. The third one is to maintain a cluster and avoid split brain when you have to do the maintenance for the application servers. So for example, ASS and ERS running in the cluster is a perfect example that can benefit from this SAP Application Server HA Interface certification. And the last one is to avoid downtime, reduce downtime after HANA reboot. HANA being an in-memory system, reboot would requires a lot of downtime because the memory has to be preloaded after the reboot. So for selected cloud vendors, they are supporting this persistent memory. And SUSE has been working closely with the cloud providers, right, to support the persistent memory approach. So regarding the light patching, update without disruption. So that's highly valuable, especially for large HANA systems. So kernel light patching has been offered for many years. And recently, SUSE expanded the support for light patching to the user space. I'll give you an example. So like glibc and OpenSSL are very common dependencies of HANA, and very often they are the target of security vulnerabilities. And that's why you want to patch these two libraries as often as possible. However, the patching would require a reboot if there is no light patches available. However, the reboot normally means that you need to reboot the HANA system. So for very large HANA systems, reboot would take hours, which is not meeting the requirement of the SLA requirement of the customers. So for that, we have been providing light patches, so you can avoid downtime, for up to 12 months after applying the patches to these two libraries. Right now, the user space light patching is only available from SUSE for being HANA certified operating system. And you're welcome to contact SUSE if you like to get more details. If you check SUSE official documentation, you can already see how to apply the light patches and what libraries are covered. And as mentioned, so application servers also need maintenance, and especially ASS and ERS running in the cluster. Without this HA interface, it's very easy to have a split brain situation, because when a sysadmin stop the application server instance running in the cluster without the proper communication, the cluster would think that something is going wrong and try to remediate. So that the result could be disruptive. So to avoid that situation, SAP has created this HA interface certification. SUSE is certified for both NetWeaver application servers and also S4 application servers. And there are slightly difference in between these two. The NetWeaver-based supports multiple databases, the traditional ones, SAP ASE, Oracle DB2, MaxDB, and also HANA database. But S4 HANA certification only supports HANA as the database layer. And there are some other differences that due to the limitation of the time, I won't go into the details, but if you like to know more, please feel free to reach out to SUSE. And then the solutions to reduce unplanned downtime. So sometimes it could be caused by the glitch in the infrastructure, or sometimes could be a malfunctioning software. And SUSE is the leader in the HA space. So we have developed various scenarios to help avoid unplanned downtime for SAP HANA and also for the application servers. The HANA HA solution is based on the HANA system application, and we support the automated failover of HANA system application. And we also support scale up and also scale out. So for each architecture, there are various scenarios. Most recently, for example, we support the multi-target system application. And so we are going to release a list of all the supported scenarios for SAP. And we are welcome to check our website and stay updated from there. And for NetWeaver and S4 HANA, the HA solution is based on the in-queue replication. So we support ANSA 1 and also ANSA 2. We also provide the HA interface connector. So you can configure the communication channel between the SAP toolsets and the cluster. So your setup would be safeguarded by the HA interface certification requirement. At the end, we also provide proactive monitoring solutions because, as I said, very often a major outage is the result of accumulated minor issues that could be remediated in early stage. For that, the monitoring can help customers gain the transparency and stay alert. So
And just before
you,
oh, sorry, Sherry,
yes.
I was just going to say, just before you start talking about the next point, if you do have a question, please remember you can just feel free to go to the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window, and you can type in your question, and someone from SUSE will follow up with you following the webinar.
Thank you, Robert. So regarding the HA reference architecture, so we work with the hyperscalers to test our design in that particular cloud environment and create this reference architecture for HANA and also for the application server layer. So you're welcome to check out the best practice that are published on the hyperscalers website. And each document has SUSE working behind the scene. And I'm excited to announce 2 new HA solutions that just became available. The first one is the fast-dying HANA Index Server HA solution. So for very large HANA servers, sometimes when the index server crashes, it takes very long time, for HANA to give a cluster that signal that something goes wrong. So the cluster can trigger the failover. And very often that recovery time doesn't meet the SLA requirement. So for that, SUSE has created a hook. So the hook would do a proactive check, to see whether there's anything wrong with the index server when HANA has a state change. And if it's index server related, instead of waiting, for HANA to give cluster that take over a signal, the cluster would be proactive and trigger the takeover right away. So the result is the reduce the recovery time. So now with this hook probably implemented into the cluster, the recovery time could be reduced from hours to just minutes for the very large HANA database. And this solution supports both scale up and also scale out. On this link, you can find more details.
Something I think it's interesting, it's important to mention here is that, in research that we've done in the past, we actually asked the question, who is it that you reach out to get information about your following your setting up high availability appropriately? And for many organizations, they reach out to their the infrastructure provider, they reach out to SAP, they reach out to the implementation partner. But I mean, often the organization that has the most experience with providing the optimal high availability setup is the operating system provider. And and I know from speaking with colleagues at SUSE in the past that there's often a challenge that organizations run into where their high availability setup is not working, particularly in a cloud environment, and it's because they often haven't taken the time to go and talk to the operating system vendor. And with those reference architectures, with the ability to ensure that everything is set up appropriately, because SUSE has so much experience setting up high availability environments across many different enterprises and landscapes, they can often offer the best information about how to make sure that yours is done correctly. So, this is really important to remember when you're deploying SAP S/4HANA, when you're making a choice about what you want to do, the environment you need to use, the operating system you're going to use. Go to your operating system provider, because they can often be the best point of reference to make sure that your environment is going to be correct.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, thank you, Robert. So that's why our today's session is focusing on, why you need to make the right platform choice. Because very often I tell customers, the operating system is the glue of the whole stack, from storage to network to the applications. And a lot of innovations happens at operating system level. And that's why platform choice is very critical through this cloud migration journey. So next HA solution is called Simple Mount NFS architecture. And for the NetWeaver, ASS, and the ERS running in the cluster. Because very often in the cloud environment, customers use NFS as the shared file system that are required by ASS and the ERS. Traditionally, we offer a solution based on the file system resource. However, right now we are changing the approach to move the management of the file systems outside of cluster. Yeah, because the operating system does a fairly good job in managing and pre-mount the shared file system at a boot. Then there's no need for cluster to manage them separately. That's why this is a simplified architecture, a lot more robust, because you have one less resource to manage in the cluster, which is complex enough. This solution is already certified by SAP HA interface certification. And also by working with the hyperscalers, they are already tested and released on some of the hyperscalers, and we are in the process of working with the rest. Because as I mentioned, SUSE is a multi-cloud solution provider. We always make sure that there is parity cross-board with our hyperscaler partners. So next category of the challenges is regarding the complexity with the deployment of the SAP landscape. Very often the customers tell us, it takes a very long time, right, to even gather the prerequisites, then carry out the installations based on hundreds of pages of SAP, not just SAP notes, but also best practices from SUSE and also from the hyperscalers. And especially the high availability setup is so complex. Sometimes a wrong setting could cause even outage. So they also seek solution from SUSE, right, to help accelerate the deployment and avoid a last minute surprise. For that, SUSE has created this multi-cloud SAP automation framework. It covers not only the operating system and the SAP installation, which is always our expertise, but by working with the hyperscalers, we also create the automation at the cloud infrastructure level using the leading open source technology, Terraform. And we, as you can see, the logos, right? We support multiple cloud vendors. And moving up from infrastructure to the operating system, we always use the certified cloud images for SAP, which bundles all the components for SAP solutions. And then we carry out the OS preparation by following the SAP notes to make sure the right configuration carried out in the base operating system image, including, for example, additional packages and kernel parameters, and even mount points required by the applications. And then we're gonna carry out a production-ready SAP installation by using the installation media provided by the customer. And at the end, if a cluster is part of the design, we can also automate the installation and the configuration of the cluster. At the end, if customer choose to use SUSE monitoring, the automation framework can also install and configure the monitoring component. So a differentiation is the automation for the operating system and beyond is bundled as part of SUSE product, and which means that the support is provided. So if you have any issue using the supported component from the automation framework, you can always call SUSE, and we are very happy to help you with that. So another component that's very critical to ensure the optimization and the performance of the SAP system is Subtune. It's very intelligent. So for example, in the past, without Subtune, the customers need to be aware of what SAP nodes to follow. Sometimes it's very easy to miss some because there are so many SAP nodes. With Subtune, what I like about is you can give Subtune the solution that you want Subtune to optimize, other than the particular SAP node number. So on this slide, this is the list of the solutions that Subtune is aware of. So you can say, for example, you have a SAP HANA database. That's the only thing you want to install. Then you can use SAP HANA / DB server as the solution. And there are so many other options that you can choose from. And the last one, your solution means that if you have your own data center standard and you want to create your own profile, you can also do that. And then Subtune can incorporate that profile. Yeah, this is a very powerful tool, highly recommended.
Yeah, and I think although we're focusing today on making the right choice moving to SAP S/4HANA, it doesn't matter where you are on your SAP journey. It doesn't matter whether you're just starting that move to SAP S/4HANA or you already have SAP S/4HANA environments or SAP HANA environments up and running. Subtune is equally applicable across your enterprise.
Exactly. So next one is the SUSE Manager. SUSE Manager is a best kept secret that a lot of customers are benefiting from actually already. And because it manages not only SUSE's operating system, but also other Linux distros. Because nowadays, a lot of customers run a hybrid mode, right? They use multiple Linux distros for different types of applications. And the SUSE Manager is the leading product in the market, can manage mixed Linux distros. And it also has this security feature bundled, provide CVE and OpenSCAP audit to keep the system secure. And one main feature of SUSE Manager is the lifecycle management. So today's session is not going to focusing on a deep dive of SUSE Manager, but I invite you to attend the next session in this series, because we're going to have a whole session to focus on SUSE Manager and the next product, which is to help with the monitoring. And yeah, after this session, please check the day and the time of the next session. So we have our expert from the SUSE Manager product team to give you a deep dive. And that's also your opportunity to ask questions. Now we are switching to the next type of customer challenges, is the lack of visibility and the insights, especially in the cluster, in the HA environment. And also sometimes the configuration drifts in the HA can cause outage. So in order to help customers safeguard the landscape and stay alert during not only day one, but also day two operations, we have created a new solution called Project Trento. It's part of our official product. And what it does is to validate and also proactively monitoring the SAP environment based on the pre-built rule sets. So those rule sets are not only from SUSE, and we work with Hyperscalers to create very unique rule sets based on Hyperscalers best practice. So in that case, within this within this console, you will be able to select the Hyperscaler that you are running, and then the scanning will be based on the particular requirement, based on that cloud provider. Again, so this session is not going to do a deep dive on Trento, but our next session is going to have some deep dive together with SUSE manager. So at the end of this slide, I'm going to give the name of next session, and please feel free to check. Last one is security. And in order to help customers further safeguard the environment, SUSE has released security hardened for SAP cloud images. Those are pre-built by our cloud engineering team and made available in the marketplace of the cloud providers. And that's why you can easily just click and launch this image. The hardenings are based on industry standard STIC and CIS, and are tested for the SAP HANA workload. It's available again in the marketplace of the hyperscalers. If you want to know more about the security hardening profile that's been used, so this link is going to point to the compliance as code GitHub repo. Within that profile, you can see all the details on the hardenings. And again, we are not targeting to solve every security vulnerabilities or to be 100% security compliant, because each organization has a different security standard. But this image is offered as a baseline. And even you can add additional security hardening based on your standard, or even remove some of the hardenings. So this is, again, the point is the hardening is highly optimizable. And right now, what SUSE provides is a baseline. So as a summary, SUSE provides various solutions to not only accelerate the migration to the cloud, but also safeguard with auto-tuning, high availability, SUSE manager, live patching, validation monitoring, and the security hardened cloud images. And all the technical components are bundled as part of for SAP applications with slight variant. So for example, the bring your own subscription has slightly difference in what's bundled in the pay-as-you-go. And if you like some deep dive, we are very happy to help you to understand the difference. But overall, for SAP is our flagship product, that offers, all the SAP solutions. And the sidebar, SUSE services, is also a very critical component to help you to ensure the success of the cloud migration. SUSE services are the experts in the SAP solutions, and we can also help you with a health check before go live, because very often customers caught issues right before the go live with, for example, with the cluster setup. And so we are very happy to be part of your cloud migration journey and help you plan ahead with health check consulting services, and also premium support to ensure that you have a smooth journey to the cloud. And so at the end, I want to introduce, if you haven't know, for SAP is the flagship product. It's a SAP endorsed app, premium certified, and it bundles all the components that are needed to have a successful SAP deployment and a safeguard environment in day-to-day operations. So I want to mention two customer stories. So Carhartt is a customer on Microsoft, and they have achieved HA solutions based on SUSE's HA solutions, and SUSE has been helping them to achieve near zero downtime for the mission critical workload. And we also help them with our solutions to manage the life cycle of the SAP environment. And another customer story is the Lemongrass, who is a partner. on AWS. And by using SUSE Manager and Slash for SAP, and they are providing customer the cost transparency by leveraging the cloud benefit and also business operation automation. And we also have, in case you ask, we also have customer success with Google Cloud. It's just a matter that we haven't been able to publish those success stories in the public space. But if you are interested in Google's customer success, we are very happy to have some conversations to have an overview. Because as I mentioned, SUSE is a multi-cloud solution provider. So coming next is the achieve day 2 operational excellence and safeguard your SAP landscape by using SUSE Manager and the Trento that I mentioned in this session. But in next session, our expert will take a deep dive on those aspects.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing all that information. I think it is very relevant to SAP customers today because many are in the process of embarking on journeys to move to SAP S/4HANA. There's still a very large number of customers that are there's probably more yet to move to SAP S/4HANA than have already moved to SAP S/4HANA. Moving to the cloud, updating systems, implementing HANA-based systems. I mean, as most SAP customers know, pretty much everything that SAP is running is HANA-based these days. Now, I did have one question for you here. And just before I ask the question, let me just remind everyone that if you do want to ask a question, please feel free to go to the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window and type in your question, and someone from SUSE will follow up with you following the webinar. Now, you gave a couple of different examples. You gave an example of Carhartt, which is running on Microsoft. You gave an example of another customer that's running on AWS. And they've obviously been able to be successful using SUSE on those different hyperscalers. Now, in our research, and I think you kind of mentioned this a couple of times already, we see organizations across a variety of different providers, from both the big public hyperscalers like Microsoft, AWS, and GCP to private cloud providers. Some are using multiple environments, hybrid environments, a combination of on-premise and in the cloud, or even, depending on the SAP workload, different public cloud providers, different hyperscalers. Now, that's obviously very much talking into that sort of multi-cloud that you mentioned a couple of times on a couple of different slides here. But how does SUSE really play in that multi-cloud space?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. So SUSE, as the leader in the SAP space, we notice this momentum of customer moving to the cloud. That's why we are very keen on making sure that our solutions work seamlessly in the cloud environment. And in order to achieve that, we partner with each hyperscaler to ensure feature parity across the board. And this is not an easy process, but because of this multi-cloud mindset, we always ensure. I give you an example is the Trento. And the Trento is developed based on rule sets from AWS, Microsoft Azure, and the Google Cloud. In next session, you're probably going to see more details. It has this intelligence to be aware of the cloud infrastructure. And on each cloud, there are some very unique settings that customers needs to be aware of and set that properly. And then Trento has that intelligence to validate that setting, for the customers. This is one example of SUSE's multi-cloud approach, and it's almost the same way with every product that we have developed and being adopted by the customers. And the advantage of adopting a multi-cloud product is once your staff becomes experienced with using SUSE product on one cloud. And when you extend your workload to another cloud and you want to adopt the same like operational process, right? You don't have to retrain your staff because those skill sets are highly portable from one cloud to another when you standardize on a multi-cloud product like SUSE provide.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's super important to have that capacity and have that support across different environments, and particularly to have the reference architectures across each cloud provider, because it's not identical, and organizations need to absolutely make sure they're using the right steps for the environment that they're implementing in. That is all the time we have for today. Just as a reminder, please go into the Q&A box, submit your questions so that someone can follow up with you in the next few business days. Sherry, is there anything you sort of wanted to add to finish before I wrap things up?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, right, to have this overview on SUSE solutions for SAP, especially for the cloud journey. And I wish every customer a great success. And if you have any question or any need, please please feel free to reach out to SUSE, and we are always here to help you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Shortly after the live event, you will receive an email reminder to access the presentation on demand, along with today's slide presentation. So on behalf of SAP Insider and our guest from SUSE, thank you for your time and have a great day.